Paris. City of love, romance and dreams. So they say. I used to say it too. But ever since that day, the day of the murder, I've always associated my beloved Paris with death. I was at home having a bath when my editor called.
Collard, get your ass over to the Palais Royale now. You got an interview. With Pierre Carchon. Yes, the Pierre Carchon. No photos, so leave your gear at home. He asked for you personally. Don't ask me why. Anyhow, this could be big, so if he makes a pass, don't forget. Just smile, say yes, and keep taking notes.
So charming and so very apt. Pierre Carchon was a media king, a national hero, and one of the most infamous adulterers in Europe. He and his wife Imelda were just one step down from royalty. Whoa, I hate mimes, but unless you humor them, they don't go away. Here I was, the palace of the Media King and the Ice Queen. I pressed the doorbell and set in motion a chain of events which would change my life forever.
Yes? What is it?
Madame, my name is Nico Collard. I'm here to see Monsieur Carchon.
Come up, we're on the first floor.
Madame Carchon, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Yes, I'm sure.
The Ice Queen was certainly living up to her reputation. Will you be staying for the interview?
Mademoiselle, I know little of my husband's business affairs, and I care even less. I certainly have no intention of watching him pore over yet another pretty little journalist.
Pretty? You're too kind, madame.
Ah, the talented and very beautiful Mademoiselle Collard. Such a pleasure to meet you at last.
Monsieur Carchon, I am honored.
Oh, I'm sure you are.
Call me Pierre, please. But I do not flatter you idly. I was a friend of your father. He was a great man.
My father? He never mentioned.
He and I were very close. And then his death. So tragic. I must... Imelda, your damned cat's in my study again. Another Ming vase, I suppose. Excuse me for one moment, my dear girl.
You journalists are getting younger each year.
Perhaps it's the rest of the world getting older, madame. That was no cat.
My God, what? Monsieur Carchon!
He's dead. I must call the police. You'd better stay here.
There was a man. It was the mime. Do you think he...
Well, I believe we can rule out suicide, don't you?
No wonder they called her the Ice Queen. She would have been top of my list of suspects if I hadn't seen the attacker myself. And if I hadn't come across a couple of murders just like this already. One of the most important men in Europe murdered And here was I, Nico Collard, alone at the scene of the crime. Should I wait for the cops? Or start my own investigation? It was a no-brainer. Mimes and guns don't usually go together, but I had an idea that this was no ordinary mime. I'd come across this murderer before, and written about him. The costume killer, at least that's what I'd called him. Some people hate searching corpses for clues. Me, I'm okay with it. Reminds me of an old boyfriend. In his pocket, I found a ticket stamped Bateau de la Conciergerie. Taking the ticket meant I tampered with the evidence. There was no going back now. Carchon had been shot. His lifeless eyes stared blankly at nothing. I closed his eyes. It was the least I could do for the poor fellow. I opened his eyes. Best to leave the crime scene as I found it. It was one of my hair clips. My favorite, in fact. It must have fallen when I was knocked down. You had to hand it to the Ice Queen. She sure knew her fabrics. A small round piece of glass had been cut out of the pane. This was a professional job. This was the work of the mime. Unless the cat was in on it too. I didn't want to cut myself and leave blood on the glass. Call me old-fashioned, but I like to keep my DNA to myself. Your original 18th century high-security window handle. The killer must have used a ladder to reach the window. He was long gone. Guess he folded that ladder up, popped it in his pocket and took it with him. A bust of Pierre Carchon, humble servant of La France. The bookcase was filled with obscure first editions. Pierre Carchon again. His eyes seemed to follow me around the room. The police could turn up at any minute. Somewhere there were clues to the murder, and I needed to find them. A beautiful cloth had been draped over the table. It was embroidered with an unusual cross. I reckoned that cloth might just turn out to be useful. There was a tiny hole in the tabletop. Part of the inlay had been chipped away. Even my fingernail wouldn't fit into such a small hole. A magnificent antique table. Imelda had talent, but I certainly wasn't going to tell her that. It was a tube of acrylic paint. French ultramarine. Just the color I was after for my bathroom.
I'm sorry, I have to go. Someone is...
Young lady, what are you doing? Oh, this paint. It's my favorite color.
For God's sake, keep the damn stuff.
Imelda looked shocked, but still every bit as hostile. Excuse me, madame.
Yes?
I am so sorry for your loss, madame.
No, you're not. You're a journalist. Journalists don't feel sorry.
Not true.
We shall see.
Why did your husband send for me? What did he want to discuss?
I have no idea. His business was his business.
He never told you anything.
No, and frankly, I preferred it that way.
How did your husband know my father?
I have no idea.
You didn't know him? Pierre Collard?
Pierre knew a lot of people I didn't know, most of them women.
Why would a mime want to kill your husband?
Pierre had plenty of enemies. Half the husbands in Paris for a start. This is quite a scoop for you. I suppose you're already inventing the headlines.
Just because I am a journalist.
Don't patronize me. You're all cut from the same cloth. Do you have any moral sense at all?
Yes, that's why I do this job.
You do it to see your name in print.
As if my editor gets the byline, I just do the work.
Well, don't expect my sympathy.
The police will be here soon, madame. Is there anybody you would like me to contact? Family, friends?
No, I have no family. Pierre and I were... He was all I had, really. Not much, was it? The dutiful wife. That was my role. He never talked, never let me in.
I know one thing, madame.
What?
If you want to find out who killed your husband,
Then you let me do the job, not the police.
Why? How do I know I can trust you?
Your husband invited me here today because he needed me. I think he knew somebody wanted to kill him, and he knew I could help.
I doubt it was your database he was after.
You're wrong. I was onto his killers already, I am sure of it. Please, you owe it to him.
I don't know.
All I need is a few more minutes to look around before the police come.
You really do have a moral sense, don't you? I trust so few people. And perhaps Pierre really did think that you could help. Of course it wouldn't have stopped him seducing you too. Here, take this. It's the key to the drawing room next to the library at the end of the hall. It was Pierre's room. I rarely went in there. I couldn't. I was too scared of what I might find.
Thank you. I promise you won't regret this. Even the telephone was antique. Never trust anyone who owns a phone like that. There was no one I needed to phone. Not until I had solved this case. A fine Baroque door. It would look great in my apartment. Now we were getting somewhere. Even the light switch looked impressive. I didn't need the lights on. It was light enough already. The painting showed the Carchons together, in love. As the poet said, the past is a different country. Or did I read that in a fortune cookie? Aha! There was a small button hidden in the picture frame. There was the very faintest of clicks. Behind the picture was a safe. The safe looked pretty secure. The safe was locked. I needed the key. The sofa was antique. For one horrible moment, I had an image of a naked Carchon wriggling around on it with a young journalist. Oh. This wasn't the time for me to lie on this sofa doing my Marie Antoinette impression. Though it is very popular at parties, especially with gay guys. Don't ask me why. As expected, the desk was yet another priceless antique. Yawn. The blotter and in tray had clearly been placed with mathematical precision. It was a sheet of blotting paper in a leather holder. Its cracked surface looked ancient, reminded me of its owner. I didn't need a sheet of blotting paper. Not while it was blank. My heart skipped a beat. It was a carved elephant. But not just any carved elephant. It had been made By my father. I knew for certain because in my apartment I had its exact twin, carved into a box he had made. So Carchon had known my father. They really must have been friends. I decided to take the carved elephant. It clearly meant nothing to Imelda. It was the beautiful elephant my father had carved. The in-tray, like everything else in this place, was beautiful. One day I was going to have an in-tray like that, even if I had to sell my apartment to pay for it. I didn't want to take the tray, but I knew that I could use it.
The paint would have just soaked into the blotting paper, but the idea was good.
I'd spread blue paint over the bottom of the tray. It was ruined. I was a very bad girl, but also quite a clever one. No. Locked. Not surprising, really. I didn't want to take the tray, but I knew that, in a way, I was going back to art school. No. 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 I didn't need a sheet of blotting paper. Aha! Nico, you are just so damn good at this stuff. A key had been hidden in a secret compartment. A modern key. Instead of comforting Imelda, I was ransacking her flat. Why? Because there was something going on here, and I had to get answers before the cops arrived. And hey, she'd been rude to me, so she had it coming. There was a strange stone cylinder in the safe. In the safe was some kind of artifact. There were strange symbols on its surface. It looked like the printer's blocks I'd made at art school. If there was one thing I'd learned about symbols, they are always important. But these symbols scratched into stone were impossible to read. I needed to find a way of printing them. At least the stone was round. But what could I use for ink? And what could I print on? Sure, I was stealing, but I knew Imelda didn't know about the artifact, and Carchon was past caring. I rolled the artifact in the paint until it was completely coated. Genius! The roller and the paint worked just as I planned, but what did it say? A secret message had been printed on the blotting paper. It was some kind of coded message. It read, sub judice. I may not have learned a lot as a journalist, but that was a term I knew well. It means a legal case that is before the courts. Below it was a sequence of letters that made no sense. I suddenly realized there was a connection between the boat ticket and the coded message. The boat ticket was stamped Bateau de la Conciergerie. The Conciergerie on the Ile de la Cité, by the river, housed the ancient law courts. So, sub judice could in this case mean literally under the law courts, below the Conciergerie. I was pretty sure I'd found all I could here. And besides, all this opulence was making me pine for my regular life of poverty. This was a huge story. It was also one heck of a puzzle with a lot of pieces missing. But I was going to... And if I could just remember the name of that fancy prize you get for being an ace journalist, I was definitely going to win it this time.
Did you find anything useful?
This carving, do you know anything about it?
It was Pierre's. What does the statue have to do with...
Please, I need to know.
He was given it by a friend, something to do with Africa.
He never explained any more.
No, but I think it was important to him, always on display. Why?
It was carved by my father.
Oh, I see. I didn't know.
Imelda, I will do everything I can to find the killer.
Thank you, my dear.
And if the police ask...
Don't worry. You were never here.
Sub judice was the key.
I was going to have to find a way under the Conciergerie. I decided to head straight for the quayside on the Ile de la Cité. If there was a way of getting under the Conciergerie, it would have to be from there.
Carchon wasn't the type for messing about on the river. He was up to something down here. Something that got him killed. This fence was a permanent fixture. The fence wouldn't move. This fence was a permanent fixture. This fence wouldn't move either. The cross looked familiar. I'd seen it before. It was embroidered on the lace cloth I'd picked up at Carchon's apartment. I knew I was on the right track. I tried pushing the fence, but it wouldn't move. A strange pair of locks stopped the latches from releasing the gate. One down, one to go. Nothing like a good convent education for honing your lockpicking skills. For a room full of junk, that was one very sophisticated lock system. This place was definitely fishy, in more ways than one. It was almost as if the fence was intended to double as a bridge. I really didn't want to pull the fence back up and risk trapping myself in this place. The skiff hadn't been touched for years. I've got an exercise bike just like that. Oops. It was an old shell case, probably from the 50s. I knew what I was talking about. I grew up watching war movies. An old shell case. I wondered what that was doing there. A rough hole was cut into the pillar. So, a stone door. There had to be a mechanism to open it. The words sinister and Dexter were carved on either side. Now any good convent girl like me knows the old Roman for left, right, left, right. But what did it mean here? Mystery solved. Carchon's stone cylinder slotted into the hole with a satisfying click. Rolling out the painted cylinder had given me a print of a secret message. It read, Sub Judice. Below it was a sequence of letters, SDSS, Rolling out the painted cylinder had given me a print of a secret message. It read, Sub Judice. Below it was a sequence of letters, S, D, S, S, D, S, S. A satisfying... Another click. Rolling out the painted cylinder had given me a print of a secret. It read,
I love the sound of locks clicking open.
Ut lex vel ut next sumito. To the law or unto death submit.
I guess these people didn't believe in liberté, égalité, or fraternity.
Yes, I'll admit it. I was a swot at school. I also wore lipstick and the nuns never knew. The cross looked familiar. I'd seen it before.
Oh my God! The slab came down with a hell of a force.
The cross looked familiar.
The stone cross was propped up. Now I was getting somewhere.
A round slot precisely carved into the stonework. No way would I be able to force the door open. I removed the shell case. I removed the stone cylinder. Lifting the cross closed the entrance door and also opened some kind of stone panel. Ingenious. The artifact slotted into the hole perfectly. Behind the old walls, I could hear some kind of mechanism groaning into life, but whatever had been triggered had now jammed. The gap was too thin for me to get a grip. I needed something thin enough to prise the door open. I removed the shell case. The cross didn't drop back down. Some kind of mechanism was holding it up. The gap was too narrow. I needed something flatter to work into it. With nothing to hold it up, the cross dropped back down again.
The stone slab had flattened one end of the shell case. I removed the shell case. Another good use for a shell case. Another secret room. Somebody had something to hide. But was it what I was looking for?